the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Okay, I'm Andreas Hinkel and I played for VfB Stuttgart, Sevilla Football Club, Celtic Glasgow and SC Freiburg.
That's an impressive CV, Andreas. Listen, very simply, two-year-old clubs going head-to-head in Europe over the next couple of weeks. First leg at Parkhead. Just generally, give us your thoughts going into that game.
I expect a really tight game or two tight games, and I think small things will decide this leg or who went through this two games, So I think I think it's quite equal, not equal, but in Celtic Park everything can happen. We know. And Stuttgart is a very good side as well, so I think it's going to be really tight.
I mean, Stuttgart going reasonably well in the Bundesliga. Celtic, by their own high standards, their form has been pretty up and down this season. Maybe not the kind of form that they would be hoping. Do you see Stuttgart as favourites going into this game?
The advantage for Stuttgart is the second leg at home, of course, but I wouldn't say they are the big favorites, It's a very good side, they are fighting for the Champions League places in Germany. But since Martin O'Neill took over again, the Celtic, they get the results, they get results. It's not that easy. It's always close, maybe at the end, maybe in injury time, but they get the results, and it's a good side. And I think the mentality is there back there, and so I expect, as I said, tight games,
And you mentioned it. We often, it sounds a bit cliched almost. The special atmosphere at Parkhead on European nights. Do you think that atmosphere? It almost means that the form that Celtic are taking into a game like that, you can almost forget about that because these are such special atmospheres and special nights, and it will lift the team, won't it? It
will lift the team, at least as I expect or experienced it in the past. At the moment, this season, I don't know exactly how the situation is at Celtic Park, with the supporters and the team. But if they stick together, the crowd is there and the team is giving everything on the pitch. It's always a bonus or how can you say it's a plus, for Celtic. So, and I think the first leg, at Celtic Park, it's maybe important, because away, the recent years or the years always, I don't know, the results are not that good, and Stuttgart, they didn't struggle. I wouldn't say struggled, but they had some results the last few years in Champions League or Europa League where they lost quite high, like, for example, in Belgrade, they lost 5-0, and if you have a games like this, at Celtic Park can happen everything, if the crowd is there and the team gets into the rhythm and they play and attack, and something can happen like that. So it can be dangerous for Stuttgart, this first leg, but they have a small advantage because the second leg is in Stuttgart.
What would you say are the strengths of this Stuttgart side, and who are the kind of danger men that Celtic need to be mindful of?
I think in general, Stuttgart, they always want to have control, they want to have the ball. It's always difficult to press them. So Sebastian Hoeneß, the manager, he wants to dominate the game. So I think this is a key thing at Celtic Park as well. Everything sticks or is together. I don't know how to say it exactly, but if Celtic can press, if Celtic can destroy this the build up, if they are inside the game, the crowd is there, something can happen at Celtic Park. If Stuttgart takes control, of course the crowd will be a little bit quieter. It can affect the game. So I think it's quite important how it goes on, at Celtic Park. So, but Stuttgart, it's as I said, they want to attack, they want to have the ball, and they have a really good side. I don't want to mention just one player, but I think Undav, the striker, is in good shape at the moment. But we have some other players like Leveling, Fürich. They there are a few players. They have a big target. They want to go to the World Cup, and they want to present themselves as good as they can for the German national team.
Just wondering, just in terms of this tie, from a personal point of view, I mean, I know how special Stuttgart is for you. You came through the ranks there, you played there, you've coached at various levels there. Obviously, Celtic as well. Just from your own point of view, how special a game is this?
For me, it's a really special game. When I saw the draw, I was happy, really. I felt happy for both sides, For me, it's quite difficult because I don't know if you have this saying, but we have a saying in Germany, I have two hearts beating in my chest, something like this. It's difficult for me to choose for one team, but it's a special game for me. Of course, I had a great time at Celtic. I love this club. I love Stuttgart as well because I grew up here. So I will be really respectful for both sides, and I'm looking forward to it because so many people around Stuttgart as well. They remember the game 2002, 2003. They remember the supporters. They came to Germany, but they remember the atmosphere at Celtic Park as well. So I think it will be a great game.
Do you still follow Celtic's progress, or do you keep much of an interest and an eye on how Celtic are doing?
Yeah, of course. I always will. I always followed Celtic, Sevilla as well. SC Freiburg, my former clubs, I follow them because if I decided, once for one club, it's my club, it's part of me, and I committed 100% this time. So it's always I always follow my former clubs, and sometimes I have more time. At the moment I have more time. When I am involved as a coach, it's always difficult to follow all the games, but at least I always follow the results, and I saw some highlights, of the matches if I was able to. So yeah, and I have to say, of course, this season was so far quite turbulent, for the club. It was up and downs and a few changes at the most important position, manager position. So it's not that easy. So this is one point you can't really judge, or how can I say, how the next few weeks will go on because of this. But I think they can finish. Celtic can finish a good season, although they are at the moment not that stable, maybe, but they made a few signings or on loan, even if it's on loan, but they made something in the winter transfer period. So I think they can finish, even if the season didn't start quite well, but they can have a good finish, I think.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Obviously, if I can take you back now, you spent 3.5 years at Celtic Park. I guess it was up and down for yourself. You won a league title, you won a League Cup, and you obviously had the injury which kind of ruined your final season there. If you take a step back, how would you sum up your time at Celtic? How special was it for you, and is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, I would have loved, or I would have liked not to get injured in my last season, in my last year, not last season. Yeah, last season as well. Yeah. So, but I couldn't influence it. It happened during a training session at the beginning of my last season. So that would have been the only thing I would have changed, maybe. The other things, it's always difficult. In my point of view, I gave everything for the club. I experienced the club as a really special club. It's not a normal club, and I still feel part of this club. Like it's like a family. If you are once in this club or you played for this club, you are like a family member. And I went there the last time in September and played for the Legends just a few minutes because I got injured again. But it was great to see my former teammates and to see a lot of people that are still working for the club. So I have good memories.
You obviously played under a few managers there as well, didn't you? Gordon Strachan brought you in, then you had Tony Mowbray, and then you had Neil Lennon. So there was certainly plenty of variety for you while you were there.
Yeah, it was. It was not that easy this time as well. I think Gordon Strachan did a great job. He signed me. I mean, especially he was there for 4 years, maybe. I'm not really sure. But he signed me, and I spent this time together with him, and I experienced, or I had the chance to get known Tommy Burns as well, huge Celtic legend. So he passed away this time. It was very emotional, the period as well. I experienced a lot, but I think the first year, of course, was really special to win the title. It was quite tight, against strangers, but we could make it at the end. But of course, all the Old Firm games, all the international games, Europa League, Champions League, were really special, and that's how I said before. I have really good memories. In this case, of course, you always have bad things as well, like changes on the manager position. But I think that's normal. I think Tony Mowbray was a really good guy. He had a good philosophy, and it didn't work out really well. With the team, can happen. But even he, I think, was a good manager as well. And Neil Lennon, he's a good. It's a really, how can I say? A guy who gives everything. He motivates the team. He wants that you leave everything on the pitch. I took something out of every manager I had there, and it's always good to have some different types of managers to get out of everybody anything.
We've been talking about the European games coming up. From your own point of view, is there one European highlight that you enjoyed that sticks out for you with Celtic?
I think it was, as I said, of course, against Manchester United was a special game. We draw. I think we could have won the game as well. We had Real at home as well in this time in the Champions League. I think in this period we didn't reach the quarterfinals, semifinals internationally, so it was not maybe that successful. But for me, the games were really, really nice to play in front of the crowd at Celtic Park.
And just finally, Andreas, will you be there for the first leg?
Yeah, I will be there. I will be there. I will come. I'm looking forward to it. But as I said, it's not that easy for me because there are two loves. I'm watching. Two clubs I like really well. So it's not that easy. But on the other side, I can relax because I can watch the games. I can watch both games and will be very respectful. And the better one should go through.
You need to get one of those European scarves that have half a Celtic badge and half a Stuttgart badge, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
The Scottish Football Podcast.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the shorter obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line, somebody's washing,
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is, you know?
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.
Are we clearer about who's going to win the Scottish Cup? Can Celtic get the upper hand over Stuttgart? And Martin O'Neill reaches 1,000 matches as manager. I'm Charlotte Cohen, and with Stephen McGowan and Scott Allan, we're going to get in deep with the Scottish football news you need to know. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Thursday the 19th of February. And Celtic face a massive European tie tonight.
And it comes from Engels, a good one! And headed home by Trusty! Brilliant header! The corner from Engels was on point! It is Celtic 4, Utrecht 2!
Can Martin O'Neill get the edge in their Europa League playoff? However, his side are up against a team in good form.
The advantage for Stuttgart is the second leg at home, of course. It's a very good side. You know, they are fighting for the Champions League places in Germany.
Stuttgart will provide a tough test at Celtic Park in O'Neill's 1,000th game as a manager. And who do you fancy for the Cup after last night's result?
Sinead's encouraged to shoot. He does and scores! Fabulously! The man who lifted the Cup last season fires it home with the left foot from 20 yards!
We're all about the continent on today's Scottish Football Podcast.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
And alongside me to chat all things Celtic Stuttgart, Scott Allan, former Celtic midfielder. Morning, Scott. You feeling confident about Celtic's chances tonight?
Yeah, listen, obviously you look at how the last 3 games have gone, scoring the late winners, which I think it definitely builds momentum just because the way you win the game. What I would say is, though, they're going to have to defend a lot better. But I think because of the type of opposition, I think Celtic will be a lot more solid behind the ball at times. I think Stuttgart will have their spells of possession, which will force Celtic into a defensive shape. And when they have done that throughout this European campaign under Martin O'Neill, they've looked pretty solid and looked good on the counter-attack and created chances. So we had a completely different game from what we've seen of Celtic the last couple of weeks. But I think we've got to take it in isolation. There has been some good performances lately in the Europa League from Celtic.
Yeah, and joining us to discuss all of that, Stephen McGowan, Herald football writer at large. Stephen, what do you think about Celtic's chances tonight?
I think they'll have to be better at home, Charlotte. I think looking at a stat here that says Celtic have won just one of their last 10 home games in the knockout rounds of UEFA competitions. Celtic Park used to be a fortress. We have this discord between supporters and the board, so I think it will be an interesting night to see whether Celtic can get that unity that Martin O'Neill is calling for.
An interesting night indeed. Well, there's loads to get into, so let's start with tonight's game. Celtic at home to Stuttgart. Scott, you kind of mentioned the last couple of games, Celtic obviously leaving it late against Kelly, leaving it late against Livy, and kind of struggling in both of those games. I mean, the opposition they're coming up against tonight are, no disrespect to Livingston and Kelly, but kind of miles ahead of the two of them.
Yeah, unless you're playing against a good Bundesliga team, they have players who can hurt you. But I do think we can look too much into recent games and who you're playing against in the domestic league. These games usually do look a bit different just because the players that are playing for Celtic will understand it'll be a difficult game. And as I say, the game won't be complete Celtic dominance, probing all the time. There'll be spells without the ball. Where Celtic have looked vulnerable is actually when they're attacking, especially defensively, when they've had to defend in moments and not that structured shape that we've seen in Europe regularly the last couple of games. They've looked as if they're going to concede goals defensively. 1v1's not defending properly. And you would imagine if that's against a Stuttgart team and they come into these scenarios a lot, then they will be punished. But Denecki's been probably a shining light the last few weeks. He's shown that starting to be that player when he first came in. He thought really positive, direct. He's now adding end product to his game, which I think Celtic fans will be really happy about, and Martin O'Neill. And he's got that little bit of quality up front. It will be interesting to see what he goes with. I'm not quite sure, but I just feel Celtic behind the ball will be in a lot better shape tonight, where they maybe don't see as much as they want 1v1 situations where for me they've been struggling.
Yeah, you mentioned Tunecti there. It's so funny, just like thinking back to when he first started, and Celtic fans were pretty much calling for his head, and now he's totally turned it around, and he's kind of the one who's been winning the game. So it's interesting. But Stephen, you'll know Stuttgart's form. They've been doing very well. 5 wins from the last 6 games. As Scott's saying, Celtic are going to have to be very, very strong defensively if they want to take anything tonight.
Yeah, but Stuttgart have the same problem as Celtic. They're not great at knockout games in Europe. I mean, I think it kind of amazed me to see that actually this is the first one they've played Europa League since 2013. I think they've won just 1 of their last 11. They've not been brilliant away from home. So I think Celtic have to exploit the first leg home advantage, such as it is, as I say. The only question will be how much advantage there is. What kind of crowd will there be? What will the mood of the crowd be? Will there be any disruption from supporters who want the Green Brigade back in? There's no sign of that right at the moment, and that's going to happen. There might be last-minute peace talks. So yeah, a lot of questions over this Celtic have to answer, and a lot of questions over just how united Celtic are at the moment, how good a position they are in to go into this tie.
Scott, how big is that Celtic support on nights like these? Because we've heard it before. I think Martin O'Neill even talking in his press conference yesterday about when they played Liverpool, I think it was, and John Robertson standing right next to him and he couldn't hear him just because the atmosphere was so loud. I mean, if they don't have that, that's going to be a real significant disadvantage, you would have thought.
Yeah, I think on a European night, the fans are synonymous with what you expect going to Celtic Park. I think especially as a home team player, and listen, even in the Champions League games, you see the opposition players line up when the Champions League team comes on. You can see them looking about, going, "Wow, this is incredible." But there's no getting away from it how much of an impact it does have, especially as a home player. It can suck the ball into the net sometimes, especially early on, and it definitely gives you a different type of confidence. There's no getting away from that. So if it was to be quieter tonight, there's no getting away from it as a disadvantage to Celtic. I think especially these games and some of the fixtures come up, Celtic have to try and get some sort of unity. Whether you put some things to the back of your head until the end of the season and try and get your team through this difficult period, because there's a lot of tough games coming up for Celtic. For me, that's what they have to do, and that's between support, players and the board. They all have to show a bit of unity in the next couple of weeks, especially for the greater good for the club.
Yeah, Scott mentions that run, Stephen. After tonight, they play Hibs, then they've got Stuttgart away, then they play Rangers, and then they've got Aberdeen in the midweek game before they play Rangers again. I mean, this is just looking like probably the biggest kind of 2-week period of Celtic's season. It's
season defining, isn't it? It will basically decide how this campaign is perceived at the end, because I think actually if you said to supporters, would you sacrifice this particular tie in European football this season for domestic glory, I think some of them would be tempted by that. And it's quite ironic because a lot of the discord comes about because fans feel there's not enough ambition and enough achievement in European football. But I think, as you said there, Charlotte, the fixtures coming up are fairly brutal. I think the Aberdeen away game being postponed was probably a bit of a blow to them, because it's really piled on a number of games coming up just now. 2 trips to Ibrox. It's going to be make or break for Celtic. It's going to be make or break for this team. It will test just how much mettle they have. There's been questions over that, over the commitment levels of 1 or 2 players. So I think we'll see what they're made of in these coming weeks, starting tonight.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of fans talking about choosing, whether people would choose European progress over domestic success and vice versa. But Scott, as a player, surely you want to be competing on all fronts, and you're more than happy to do that even when it's difficult.
Yeah, as a player, that thought of sacrificing something just doesn't come into your head, especially a lot of the players who have came to Celtic. They've came, yes, to win domestic titles, but usually to showcase their talent and on the European stage. I think Arne Engels will be a big loss, because he has been one of the most important players, especially in the European games, whether that's with delivery, stepping up from the penalty spot, or just showing wee glimpses. I think he will be a big miss in this sort of game tonight. But as a player, there's whatever game comes up, you want to go out, perform at your best of your ability, and you You just never know. Yes, Celtic haven't been fantastic this season, but if you've managed to get a good run in Europe, I think it only grows confidence, especially with the games. If they were to overcome Stuttgart tonight and perform well, I think it builds momentum again. Yes, winning the games in the last minute adds that domestically, but winning in Europe against a good side only builds confidence when a group that's not shown it consistently throughout the season.
There's a huge focus on one or two individuals as well, isn't there? Because Martin O'Neill was asked to focus yesterday on Rio Hatate, who was such a key player for Celtic for so long. And it just looks like he's off it. I mean, in the minds of supporters, it looks like he's kind of gone, as if he's checking out. I think Martin O'Neill denied that, said that's not the case. But Scott said they're missing Arne Engels. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is not eligible for Europe. He's not in the European squad. So they're really leaning on one or two players to step up to the plate tonight to really show that their head is still in the game. And I think Hatate will be top of that list.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I mean, Scott, do you think that these are the kind of games where players like Hatate, like if he steps up tonight, all of a sudden, I suppose that the opinion maybe shifts?
Maybe, but I think as someone, I'm a big fan of Hatate. I have been for the last few years. I think he's got real quality on the ball. He can open doors with his vision. Plays in areas of the park where he can really go and hurt the opposition, and he has done over the last few years, but there's no getting away from his performance has dipped. Yes, it will maybe encourage the fans for one game, but Celtic fans and Celtic supporters expect to see that. They expect to see that sort of performance consistently, especially playing for Celtic, especially when you look at the fixtures coming up. But it's such a strange one because, as I say, I'm a big fan of how he plays. I do think he's really effective, and for me, he's got some of the best vision within the league. But he's been a shadow of that player that we've seen over the years, and with these sort of fixtures coming up, you just can't afford to be waiting to see if he's going to fancy it or not. I just think that's the position Celtic are in. They need, because you're not seeing that level of performance week in, week out, you need everybody working first and foremost. But then that unity, as I spoke about, it's such an integral part of trying to go and win things, especially this time of the season. So Hatate has to try and rediscover his form. Whether Martin O'Neill sticks with him week in, week out will be another thing, but there's no getting away from it. He's looked a shadow of the player that we have seen over the years.
Scott, you've been there. You've bought a T-shirt. Do you buy this idea that a player can't check out? Does that happen?
No, because I think if you have aspirations to go and move on, usually when that happens, you have a bit of confidence if you know teams are interested in you, and you want whoever's watching to see the things that you're good at. So sometimes you can just have a dip of form, and as much as we think all footballers are really confident, see when you're not playing well, you start double guessing yourself. All the things that you maybe do instinctively becomes a bit harder. Does he have the same runs forward that he's maybe had in the last couple of years? So when he opens up on his right foot and he's looking to find the through balls, he probably doesn't have the same quality of runs that he maybe had over the last few years. But when it's like that, it's very cliche in football. It's back to basics, and what he did do for me really well over the last few years was the basics really well. His first touch, giving goals with whether it's a winger, the striker, the midfielder. But we just haven't seen any of that sort of stuff from Rio Hatate. So as much as everybody thinks you're a football player, you're full of confidence. When you don't perform consistently, little doubts do creep in.
It's funny because this time last year, I think it was Celtic played RB Leipzig, didn't they? And Hatate was brilliant that night.
Yep.
Terrific. So, maybe Europe might be the spark that just gives him that little bit of something to really kind of step up again. And as Scott says, just get his confidence back and put in a performance.
Yeah, you hope for Celtic's sake that he kind of does that sooner rather than later, don't you? Well, just before we move on, I'll get both of your score predictions for tonight. Stephen, start with you.
I think maybe a 2-1 win for Celtic. I think they will probably do enough to win the home leg. Whether they've got enough to win the tie against a team that are fourth in the Bundesliga, not 100%. But you know what? I think they've got a good attitude to this, which is that if it happens, great. If it doesn't, I think they accept where they are and that they've got bigger fish to fry at the moment. So 2-1 for the first leg.
Scott, what about you?
Yeah, I would go the same as Stephen. Probably say 2-1. I think it might just be the right game at the right time for Celtic, and it could really kick them into gear with this fixture list that is coming up, because there's no getting away from it. It's going to be a real difficult couple of weeks for Celtic.
I'll make a note of that. Go and lump a big bet on after we finish, and then if it doesn't come off, I'll be coming to both. I
wouldn't put that on the bookies.
It's Martin O'Neill's 1000th match in charge. Stephen, a remarkable achievement, one that I think in his press conference he didn't know was happening, he didn't see coming. It's just a great number to hit for him.
You know, I always feel probably this is a media construct, this stuff. You know, I don't really know if it means that much to the people involved. It's just it's a nice headline for us to put in the paper or to put in
It does when you get a nice graphic, Stephen.
Well, possibly. But listen, I think I saw the list. The League Managers Association is one of only 40 who've done that in the modern age. So that's not a big group. That is quite an elite achievement. That he's managed 300 games at Celtic, which probably feels like 3,000 somewhere else, right enough. But in fact, it probably feels like he's done 3,000 games in the last 2 months. But I think it's a massive achievement for Martin O'Neill. And actually, when you think about it, he was Republic of Ireland manager for quite a long time as well. He was an international manager, so it does make you wonder how many he could have done if he'd been persistently in club football that entire time. But congratulations to Martin. And you know what? I think if he has a good season this season, if he delivers the league title, I wouldn't rule out a few more for him at Celtic either, because I think the clamour for him to get one more year would be pretty immense.
Poor guy, they're going to be wheeling him out in 10 years' time to sit on the sidelines.
Think of the money.
I suppose this is the thing, Scott. Martin O'Neill probably back in August, if you'd have said to him, oh, by the way, you're going to manage your 1000th game this year and it's going to be at Celtic, he probably would have laughed in your face.
He would have laughed. He would have thought there's absolutely no chance. Brendan Rodgers was still the manager of Celtic at the time.
Yeah.
But it just shows, it's why we love football. These kind of stories come round every so often, and there's no getting away from it. Martin O'Neill has been the glue that Celtic needed this season. Obviously, the discontent between fans and board and performances. The Wilfred Nancy tenure that really didn't go well from a Celtic point of view. So there's no getting away from it. He has been the real glue. And if he was to come out of this season with some silverware under his belt again, he would be looking back at this season probably one of his most fond of, I'd imagine, just because of the timing. And 1,000 games as a manager, it's incredible, really.
And I suppose, Scott, you mentioned that the Wilfred Nancy saga, which feels like a lifetime ago now, and it really wasn't, but it's the question that everybody's going to ask, and one that we'll never have an answer to. But how different a position do you think Celtic would be in had they stuck with O'Neill and just gone, right, Brendan's away, O'Neill until the end of the season, and not even touched any of that Wilfred Nancy nonsense?
There's no doubt for me they would have been in a better position. I'd imagine they'd have been League Cup winners, and sort of the games that they lost, they might not have won them all, but they wouldn't have lost them all. That's, for me, there's no getting away from that. Timing, as we spoke about many a times, to a point. Wilfred Nancy in that week that was Hearts won the European title, I think it was Roma, and then obviously with the League Cup final at the weekend of that week, there's no getting away that for me Martin O'Neill would have come out of that stronger. No chance.
Stephen, have you got any memories of Martin O'Neill? Any fond memories of Martin from his first tenure? You were probably kicking about.
Oh, I think he's a mellower character now than he was back then. I do remember he used to go to press conferences and he would look over his glasses and fix you with a gaze, and you knew you were in bother. He'd said something you shouldn't have said. So yeah, a bit like the late Walter Smith. You know, it's funny how the older a manager gets, the more kind of like mellow and media friendly they become, the better they become at handling it. Things that would have upset him 20 years ago probably don't upset him quite as much now. And he's got Sean Maloney as a big crutch as well. I mean, I don't think you can underestimate, or should underestimate, the job Sean is doing there, because he's not only been taking charge of recruitment in the last window, but he's been coaching as well, and he really has been doing a lot of the kind of shape and organisation and so on. So I think it's been a good combination, a good team. It will be interesting to see how long it continues, but that will be totally contingent on how this season pans out, and there's a long way to go yet.
Maybe he'll stay on at the start of next season just so he can get a new tracksuit. Maybe.
I think he'll get the tracksuits for the rest of his life now anyway.
If he wins this league, he will get a statue, never mind a tracksuit, I suspect.
Statue in a tracksuit?
Well, possibly. Very possibly.
Finally, let's chat about last night's cup clash at Pittodrie, moving away from European action, talk about a bit of domestic action. Scott, how do you even begin to sum up? Because it felt like that game was defined by kind of refereeing decisions, shall we say?
Yeah, it was Charlotte for me. This is what happens with it when you look back at the Trusty one at Tynecastle. Now there's a precedent set. For me, the first one, it's so unfortunate. Obviously, he slips and he's with a follow through. Obviously, wipes him out. I still think that the ball's running through to the goalkeeper, but it did. There's no getting away from it. It really upset the kind of the rhythm of the game was going to go for me. At the same time, Motherwell made a lot of changes. It didn't look. For me, early on in the game, they didn't look that fluent side that we have seen, and that does happen with that amount of changes. It's just we hadn't expected them, I don't think, in a Scottish Cup tie, but that maybe, whether that's a real belief in his squad that Jens has shown, or his focus as the league will be interesting over the next couple of weeks if they go and win at the weekend. The two after that, listen, for me, the Geiger one, who I think looks a really good player for Aberdeen. I think he looks an excellent find. Red card for me, and the second one of Liam Gordon. I would say there was a long way to go for Olisanya. He burst through from the halfway line. I thought that was a poor decision for me. So at the same time, after that, I thought Motherwell's response was decent. They still try to do the same things that we've seen them do consistently over this season. Maybe a couple of chances, like Maswini says, one off the post, and it maybe be a different game. But the pitch played a part in the game as well. The pitch was really poor, as you would expect to the amount of rainfall that Aberdeen has had. So I think from Aberdeen's point of view, they're into the next round of the Cup. They've managed to get a game on, but from Motherwell, their whole focus now is on the league, where they've been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I wonder, Stephen, I wouldn't say relieved, because you imagine Motherwell fans were probably looking at the way the competition had opened up with that Celtic Rangers quarter-final, and probably were thinking we could actually do something here. But I don't know, can they take any sort of solace from just being able to focus on the league and really put a challenge in to cement that fourth spot?
I don't know if solace is the right word. I mean, I think a lot of people were looking at the Scottish Cup as Motherwell's chance of reward for what they've done. I mean, they haven't won that cup for 35 years. This was a real opportunity for them to do it. The competition's opened up. Celtic or Rangers are going to be out after the next round. There was a real opportunity for them there, so I think they'll be really disappointed. As Scott says, it wasn't the kind of performance I've seen from Motherwell after Priestman went off, and the Liam Gordon decision was preposterous, to be honest with you. I mean, how many times have we sat here this time in the morning, Charlotte, and said that Motherwell, they won't win the league, but they'll have a heck of a say who will win the league. It's becoming one of the big cliches, and they've got to focus on that now, because they can be king makers and king breakers in the coming weeks, and that's what's left for them to aim at. These post-split fixtures are going to be fascinating and toxic in equal measure, and Motherwell will be big players in that scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention about the performance last night, because they've obviously been so good in the league. We've talked about them being so good in the league. But Scott, I mean, that's another cup game, important cup game, that they've not managed to get through. The semi-final against St Mirren, it just wasn't great for them. It's interesting that those have been the games where they've slipped up.
Yeah, for me, I think I was expecting to see your strongest Motherwell team last night. Obviously, changing the goalkeeper does have an impact in the game, and he does play it short on for the sending off. It's a wee bit of slackness pitch, and that, yes, does play a part, but Callum Ward has been in there and been excellent of late. So for me, it was a huge opportunity if they overcame Aberdeen. You're then looking at Dunfermline, which you would fancy. Obviously, Motherwell would have been strong favourites, and then you're back at Hampden again, and anything is possible, especially because they've been playing so well. So it's, for me, absolutely a chance missed. And I think there'll be a lot of Motherwell fans really disappointed with that. You look back at that League Cup semi-final against St Mirren, Motherwell were in heavy favourites and St Mirren done a job on them, not getting away from it. As much as they did have chances, St Mirren obviously deserved it on the day. So full focus now on the league, but that was a huge opportunity for Motherwell last night. There's no getting away from it.
Well, what about Aberdeen on the flip side then? We did a podcast episode yesterday that was basically a deep dive on what was going wrong at Aberdeen, and now, I don't know, speaking to the guys on it yesterday, they kind of didn't think that winning last night would have righted a lot of wrongs. But I suppose, Stephen, it goes a long way to appeasing some of the supporters who've been really disappointed and giving them a real chance to go and retain that cup.
I thought it was huge for him, to be honest with you. I mean, I think you saw what it meant to him at the end as well. Graham Shinney was pushed to the red shed by the manager and kissing the badge when he scored the goal. And I think that shows you how much it means to him. And the Scottish Cup is it for Aberdeen now. It doesn't look as if even they'll make the top 6. So it's all about retaining that trophy. You saw what it meant to them last year. I think going to Hampden at least for the semi-finals, maybe for the final, would be big for them. I mean, they're in a kind of holding pattern, aren't they? Because they don't have a manager. They're hanging on to the summer to see if they can get the new man over the line, get it done. So they're kind of just clutching at straws wherever they can find them. And I think last night was quite a big straw for them to clutch at, because they've got a winnable, appealing game against Dunfermline in the next round now. And it just extends their season a little bit longer, because make no mistake, if they lost last night, their season was over.
Yeah, Scott, that Dunfermline tie, it's looking, I mean, for all intents and purposes on paper, it looks quite straightforward, but you feel like they've beaten Hibs. They'll probably be thinking, Aberdeen are not great. We've got a real opportunity here to take something.
Yeah, I think so. But ultimately, Dunfermline have to perform better of late. Yes, the Hibs game, I thought Hibs were really poor on that day and did have chances to win the game. And Dunfermline were rugged and managed to stay in the game and ultimately win the game from a set piece. But they've not been performing well in the Championship of late. They win over Kelty Hearts. Wasn't a fantastic performance. I think Chris Kane came on at half time and actually changed the game for Dunfermline. At least gave him a focal point up front. But listen, for me, Aberdeen would be strong favourites going into that, and it gives them a great opportunity, maybe get some sort of success in this season, because Aberdeen, after last season's Scottish Cup win, you were expecting this year they made signings to go on and really look to be maybe that third or fourth place in the league consistently. They just haven't done that. The recruitment hasn't been good for me. And now they're in that limbo position where you've got the interim staff to the end of the season while they still try and find a manager. So ultimately, the players will be looking at that Dunfermline tie like a game they can really win. And I think they would be huge favourites, just because I've seen quite a lot of Dunfermline recently and they haven't blown me away.
Yeah, I suppose that game last night is the kind of game that can kickstart seasons or re-kickstart seasons, isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah, they'll have to hope so. It'll be interesting to see the impact Tony Dock makes. Tony Docherty's obviously gone back in as a coach. It was interesting that the technical director wasn't in the technical area last night. That's been a feature of recent games, so I don't know whether Tony Docherty's chased him. Look, I mean, Aberdeen just have to take small baby steps at the moment. I mean, there is this bemusement. I mean, I saw the reaction to Michael Grant saying on here yesterday morning that the deal for the manager was complex. That wasn't what supporters wanted to hear. They wanted to hear that the new man was coming in, that it was almost done, and that doesn't look to be the case yet. So there is simmering discontent at Aberdeen. You can understand it. They just have to buy themselves some time to try and get through to the point where they can actually make a managerial appointment and look forward again.
Absolutely. Well, that is all we've got time for. Many thanks to Scott and Stephen, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. You can also listen to tonight's European action on BBC Radio Scotland from 7 o'clock. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll catch you again tomorrow.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the sorer obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out the back line. Somebody's washing, you know.
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is, you know?
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.